الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. One last time, even though the subject is a detailed one, subject of the means, because the subject, means and the ends, objectives and the means, is something that if a human being gets it clear, everything falls in place. One of the principles that is established in the deen of Allah, and it's mentioned in the matters of the usul fiqh, matters of fiqh, very clear, that al-wasa'il laha ahkam al-maqasid, as they say. The means has the same rulings as the ends, as the objectives, not the Machiavelli one. The ends do not justify the means in Islam. For some people, if the objective is a good cause, it doesn't matter what the means that they would take to achieve this goal. This is evil principle. The objective has to be a noble one, and the means to it has to be also a noble one. The end, the objective, has to be a good thing, a permissible thing, and the means to achieve it has to also be permissible. So we cannot achieve something noble by committing haram, by disobeying Allah, saying, my intentions are good. The only way for me to do something good, if a person claims that, is by doing haram, by harming someone. It's okay. No, this is haram. This is not in the deen of Allah. The deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the means and the objectives and everything has to be halal, has to be good, has to be noble. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all things. And if a person is not able to achieve something that is noble and that is good, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the owner of all things. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put burden on someone in a way that he cannot bear. And this rule has so many different applications to it in matters of halal and haram. You have al-mubahat, or what's permissible, or so many different things. It's permissible to eat, to drink, to walk, to drive. All these types of things are permissible. But if you're going somewhere, if you're driving a car to steal, for example, so it's not just about stealing that is haram. The way to achieve this, anything that would makes it easy for the person to commit something wrong, becomes also haram. If someone would assist, and this is something well known even in laws of human beings everywhere, if someone helps someone to commit a sin or to commit a crime, both of them are criminals. Not just the one that committed the crime with his own hand, also the one that aided him to do so. So this is a very serious matter. And that's why a person should not say, well, I didn't do it, but you helped. You helped with even sometimes half a word, as they say. Shatr kalima. A person would encourage someone to do something bad, and that person act upon it. Then can that one that encouraged him is free from being blamed? Of course not. So that's why we have to be extremely careful with the means and the ends and so on. Not just in the very obvious ones, but also in the things that might not very clear and obvious to the people. And that's why we have in the deen of Islam means to achieve what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do. So you would find, for example, things that people would take, means that people would take, thinking that this brings all kinds of good things, but they overlook the sins that they commit. They think it's okay. Do not be very strict. It's all small sins because there's a noble cause. No, it doesn't work this way, because it's the deen of Allah, and we are ibad to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to be patient with the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and only work in the limits that we have when it comes to the halal and the haram that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do. And there are many things that makes it also easy. And of course, we always ask the ulama in these matters, in everything that concern matters of life or deen, there's no separation between both. And that's why the ulama, for example, they talk about the mas'ala, very famous mas'ala, and comes under it many different masail in fiqh. Bay'ul inab liman ya'siru khamran. Selling grapes to someone that would squeeze it and make wine from it. Is selling grapes halal or haram? Halal. It's halal to sell grapes, right? It's halal to grow grapes. MashaAllah, this is good. But if you come to you, the owner of wine factory, and he wants to take all of the grapes that you have. And it's very clear that he's taken it to make wine from it. Is it permissible for you to sell it? No, even though you're not doing anything haram by selling grapes. But at the same time, if you're in the market selling grapes, you're not going to ask every individual, come, what you going to do with the grapes? And you're like this. No, you sell grapes unless it becomes clear. The same thing, the ulama, they say, بيع السلاح في الفتنة. Someone selling guns. He has license to do it. He has a store, gun shop. Everything is permissible according to the law. But someone entered the store with fire in his eyes. Give me a gun right now. And he has all kinds of things that, is it permissible for you to give him, to sell him a gun, for example? Of course, there's details to this. But even the ulama, they say at times of fitna. Fitna, that means people are killing each other outside in the streets, for example. And a person knows that, if he get into that business, he will cause himself to fall into haram, helping others to shed blood or something, or things of that nature. A person has to stay away so that he does not take a permissible mean originally to commit something haram. It might be difficult for a person to achieve these principles, but the point of here is not to make ourselves muftis and making rulings and verdicts, but just to understand that it's not always as simple things as we think. We have to make sure that we follow the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not every mean that sounds to be good is okay. We have to look at the end of things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always calls us and invites us to look at the end of our actions and what the consequences of our speech, our actions, to make sure that everything is according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So therefore, again, the subject of the means, when it comes to how it's related to even the tawheed and the shirk, to have the heart attached to the means, and this is it, without having the hearts relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a form of shirk, not necessarily major one. That's why they call it iltifatu ila al-asbab shirk. That means it negates the pure tawheed when someone's heart is fully attached to the means and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they think this is the mean to achieve this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His will, He can take all the means, and at the end, it doesn't work as you wish it can be. On the other hand, al-i'rad an al-asbab naqsun fil aql. Whoever does not take the means, he has problem with his intellect. He's majnoon, he's insane. If someone claims the means are not to be taken, just rely upon Allah and sit like this, and you'll have food and you have drink and everything, and miracles will happen. That's a crazy person. He needs to have some mental help, because he turned away from the means. And to be away from the means, also it's something that affects one's religion, because the religion is based on taking means. But what are these means? Based on ilm, based on knowledge. And as mentioned before, whether it's physical means that is known or religious means, the religious means is not permissible for someone to take a religious mean or a mean that is not a physical one, unless we have clear evidences from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that it is a mean. And we talked about the examples before. And this is how to, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we rely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and take the means, but we have limits. We go by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us. Even if people say, but this doesn't look like that, it doesn't matter. We follow the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in the deen of Allah is the perfect justice and the perfect mercy and wisdom and all kinds of good things, inshallah ta'ala. Today's Jumu'ah, so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless our Jumu'ah, and we're entering into the best days of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for each and every one of us, inshallah ta'ala. Inshallah, we'll have the tafsir in a few minutes, inshallah.